I'm having internet problems, so I'm going to keep my video off for a little bit and then I'm going to test it. I just rebooted it, so we'll see if it works.
Okay, well, good morning, Christina.
Morning, how are you? Very
Very
nice to
good.
talk.
So you have your video for use off, but can you see us?
I can definitely see you guys, yeah. And it
Uh,
looks
And that's scary.
well, I wanted to introduce you to start with. Jan Masterson is at the top left of my screen, but anyway, she is writing the program that'll be the printed program for the conference. And so the first part of our discussion today here, I wanted to
There you are.
work. I'm all fingers crossed because the last call went out completely. But I rebooted twice. This is the world
Uh-oh.
we live in.
Oh
This
boy.
is wonderful.
Uh-huh.
I was starting to think you were a figment of my imagination.
Maybe
No,
I
a
am.
voice on the other end of the phone.
Well, I'm so glad that we're together. This is great. So Jan is she's writing the program. She's
Great.
unbelievable. She was the editor of my book and just absolutely. So she'll want to interview a little bit and ask some questions. And then, so she'll be focusing on the 2025 conference. And Lyndon Price, he's the executive director of Contemplative Network, and he's been involved in two Templeton grants.
Oh,
And he and I worked together on it, and we failed on both. So we've got to get some consultation
Yeah.
with you.
Oh for two.
And that's related to more to the 2027 conference. And so before we start, how much time do we have here? I don't want to abuse your time.
whatever. It's fine. And let me see. I had it scheduled till like a little afternoon, 12:15.
Oh, okay. So to give us about an hour. Yeah.
Okay, so just to kind of give an overview real quick, and why we're together, just to kind of bring it together. The one person that's not on this call and couldn't make it is Jeff Renner, and he'll do that later sometime at your convenience. And he's the moderator, and he's incredible, and he asks other questions a little bit, but I'm recording this so he can see what we talked about because he wants to get a feel for how to introduce you. And you may have seen on the website your name's up and as a presenter. I assume you did, right? And you got a flavor from that it's going to be path forward, and you'll be at the dinner kind of talking about the 2027 conference and what you've done in Washington, D.C. And I'm hoping that we basically can work together on a 2027 conference and as a partner. And from your experience in penetrating into a hospital, assist us to penetrate into the Texas Medical Center, which is the largest hospital complex in the world and the most anal, I think. I don't know. And that's a whole other subject, which is what we want to get into. And then the other thing is the Templeton grant is applied for in August of every year. So that's why right after the conference is over with, we can talk and present that presumably. So before I get into this too much, I think I do want to mention one other thing. You'll be at the cocktail party to meet all the other speakers, and that's wonderful. And you should be at the Palo 6 Hotel. So when you register, tell her that's where you want to be.
And why? And
Yeah.
why?
And then, yeah, just if you can I think my secretary has that link, but can you just send that link again so I can be sure that she registers and gets me in that hotel?
Okay. It's the
And make sure when
conference, which is, if you go to contemplative.net, which is our website, then the conference website jumps up right away, and then you can click on that, and that's the link.
So go to contemplative,
.net.
Contemplative.net,
and then
you'll see the website. Click
okay.
up for the conference, and then click on that.
And
Okay.
that'll walk you through the registration process.
Yeah.
And just make sure that when you or whoever is making your reservations, that you let them know you're a speaker. That way there should not be any hitch with getting you into the Palo 6 because it's a smaller hotel for one thing. And we don't want any of the attendees in that hotel.
Okay.
We want to keep the speakers
The reason we
Well,
took the
first
chair,
of all, you can get there easily because we walk across a walkway thing, that's
Okay.
attached, and you won't be bugged in the evening. You have a quiet evening.
So okay, so when I'll have Sharon do this. When she goes on contemplative.net, then it lists the name of the conference.
there's a
It will
pop-up
be a
screen.
pop-up.
Let me explain to her, okay, because we've been doing all this. There's a pop-up screen that says the conference. You click on that.
Pop-up screen that says the name of the conference.
Right, and that actually has a different website, and that's actually faith-science.org. But rather than memorize two websites, I'm just giving you one, and it'll click up there. And what Jen was saying is that the speakers are all staying at this hotel because it's right next to the conference center, and the registrants have to come in by bus from another location. So we're trying to avoid that. And that way we have all the speakers together to get to know each other.
Okay.
And that's going to be powerful, I think, for you and us in planning the next conference in 2027. I told the partner over there, you're a speaker, but it doesn't hurt to reiterate that, okay?
Okay, and it's the Paolo 6 Hotel, right?
Paolo 6.
Yes.
And I'll try to remember to include Sharon in this. How did she pronounce her name? Sharon?
Yeah, Sharon. It's Cherron, but she says Sharon, yeah.
Okay.
So it's the Paolo 6 Hotel. And give me the number of nights, the dates again, just so I can put it in one email.
When you register, it'll be 4 nights. And its arrival on the 17th and departure on the 21st.
And that's in June, right?
June. But the registration will show that. Now, if you want to come early or stay late, when you register, be in touch with Laura Donna. And I already sent that email to Sharon, so she's got it.
Sharon.
Sharon, I asked you that I mispronounced it.
Yeah.
That's why he invites me on these calls so I can help him, get his foot out of his mouth.
So anyway, Dan, you want to take over here? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. It's nice to meet you, Christina, and I look forward to actually meeting you in person. One question that I know Jeff always asks, and I'm sure he will again when he speaks with you privately, is how do you like to be introduced when you do these kinds of things? People usually have a preference for that.
So I can just have Sharon send you that, just my title, Dr. Christina Puchalski, Director of George Washington Institute for Spirituality and Health.
And that's how you like to be introduced. That's great.
And Professor of Medicine, something like that at GW. I always have to mention that too.
Okay, no, I get it. Yeah, and he just wants to make sure that he doesn't fumble that when he introduces you.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. And that's really the only particular question I remember him asking. So I'll go into my questions.
Okay.
Jeff will speak about you in kind of a general way. What I'm looking for in the written profile for the program is who you are as a person. We can look you up and see what your degrees are and, what you studied and what your specialties are and all this kind of thing. And what I want to I want our attendees to kind of get an idea of who Christina is as a person. My first question is, leading into that, why did you agree to speak at this conference for us?
I really support the idea as I understand it in terms of the importance of contemplative. Well, let me give you a little background. When I said yes, first of all, I'm a secular Carmelite, so I Discalced Carmelite. So for me, contemplative life is really essential. But even before I became a secular Carmelite, as I was growing up, it was just my dad was phenomenally spiritual, both my parents, but my father in particular, and we were, he exposed me to many wonderful things in Southern California, like the Self-Realization Fellowship Center. And I shared this with Bob. We used to go to this, if you know what that is, it's Paramahansa Yogananda started that last century, but it's a lovely little place near Malibu Beach. I know a little wooden chapel back then. They were trying to preserve it in the recent fires, and they did, actually.
Oh, that's good news.
Yes. Yeah. And we would, my father, and then you're going to understand this as a contemplative, my father would say, let's just come and sit.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
that should explain it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was really blessed to learn meditation from him. We are Catholic and very broad. My parents were from Poland, so I would always like to say they're European Catholics, very broad thinking and inclusive, and we explored different faiths. And then I was really blessed to go to Immaculate Heart High School in Southern California, which is I'll just say that the cardinal at that time wanted to kick the nuns out. So that will kind of give you a flavor of
Okay. Gotcha. Yep.
they were great. They were really, really good educators. Many had PhDs. We were really blessed to have faculty like that. And this is what we talked about all the time was
So
spirituality.
you basically grew up
I grew
in
up
that
with it.
environment. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you tell us that your parents were basically interfaith people, in the sense that
Well,
they
I don't want to
respected?
say interfaith. I don't want to say interfaith. No, we're Catholic.
Right.
Roman,
No, I got that part. Yeah.
but um, but it's just it. I was just raised with accepting being respectful of everyone.
Okay, that's fine. So you
That's what I
respect,
mean.
yes, I
So,
got you. All right.
and
I
but
just
I
wanted
would
to clarify
say that
that.
my father explored lots of different practices, and we were more on the contemplative side. I would say meditation, presence of
Okay.
yeah.
So basically you respected other faith traditions
Oh,
and spiritual philosophies. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
That sounds like me. I've been studying them all my life, so I get that. Yeah, I grew up in that kind of environment too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's really wonderful to be
Yes,
raised
it
that
is.
way, that we wouldn't be having some of the problems we're having. We just
Yeah, I kind of agree with that for sure. That's led me to studying the different faith traditions and spiritual philosophies through the years. And yeah, I think you're right. If we'd all start listening to each other about that, we'd probably have fewer problems. But that's a discussion for another day. So basically, you were intrigued because of what we're trying to do, just not just the conference, but with the organization.
with the organization, yeah. I'm very,
Yeah.
very yeah.
Okay. All right. And I need a little bit of an education here, even though I'm a cradle Catholic. You said you were a secular
Yes.
Carmelite.
Saint John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Avila. Do you remember them?
Yeah, right.
So let's see. That was I want to say, when was that? 12. Anyway, but John of the Cross was a Carmelite mystic, as was Teresa of Avila.
Right.
And it's a very interesting order. John was there was the original Carmelite order he was part of, but I guess they imprisoned him. I guess he was politically, I don't know how it goes in religious orders, but he escaped. And then Teresa of Avila, who had founded the Carmelite sisters, hid him. And
Mhm.
eventually they founded a new order called the Discalced Carmelites, which meant shoeless, or they wore sandals. So the previous Carmelite order, as I understand it, was more traditional, I guess, religious life. They wanted to be really more ascetic and contemplative. So I was drawn to that very much.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I was just doing some reading about John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila just within the last week or so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't hold back. Did you see when the fourth day after psychology to mysticism, the offsite we're going to?
No, I didn't see that.
It's the Bernini statue.
Oh, yes, you told me about that. I've been at that statue. Yeah, the ecstasy.
Oh, isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, it's beautiful when her heart's pierced by the. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Jan.
Okay. You kind of sort of answered the second question is what excited you as a child? You want to go into a little bit more detail about that? What excited you as a child? I mean, what did you read a lot? Did you play jacks and jump rope? What kind of things did you do as a child?
I don't know. And where is this interview going to go? Because there's some things I just don't want to.
Oh, no, I get that. No, I understand that. It's going in the printed program.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think of that so much. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I loved animals. My parents were wonderful. They were immigrants, and I, really, growing up in a Polish American household. But lots of things.
Yeah.
That's
You said
something
they
I
were
want.
immigrants.
That's not something I want in the interview. I just, yeah. And
Oh, I get that. No, but it helps me understand you because you're basically a first generation American.
yeah.
And that makes a difference in a viewpoint a lot of times. And so that helps me wrap my head around a little bit
Oh, yeah.
about, yeah, just kind of understanding you a little bit. My grandfather, my Irish grandfather, was a first generation American. And so, I'm sorry, my dad was a first generation American. And that had an influence even on me as the next generation because of the things that his parents were both from Ireland. And it had a profound effect on his life. And he was an Irish Catholic. So as a Polish Catholic, you understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that helps me. Thank you for sharing that. It gives me a
Well,
better.
but also the sisters we had were fantastic. The Immaculate Heart sisters, they were really, most of them had PhDs. We were really blessed because there was also Immaculate Heart College above the hill from us. So they fought really hard for, educating sisters and teachers. And yeah, it was at a time when the cardinal at that time, as I understand it, when he came in, he realized that increasing the enrollment in schools and having more grammar schools was a good thing. And so, what was happening back then was, this is before my time, they were, there were classes of 65 or so, and teachers had just gotten out of high school. I mean,
yeah, right.
So they were very passionate about education, about proper kind of education, and also the way I was raised. The Immaculate Heart charism is, do what gives you deep meaning in life. That might be as a doctor, it might be as a mother, it might be as an airline pilot, whatever. It was really that sense of where do you find meaning and purpose? And one of my favorite teachers was taught a course on existentialism. And I thank him because that's such a big part of what I've developed in terms of a definition of spirituality as meaning, purpose, and connectedness, and the search for transcendent and how people find that in their lives in any way. So I'm very much, I wouldn't say interfaith, it's beyond that. It's what is that inner part of people's lives that give them meaning and purpose, that give them some sense of a transcendence, be it God or something else. People understand this in many different ways. So I'm very, very beyond ecumenical. I think
you're into the PFE, purpose for existence.
Something like that.
I talk about that a lot in my writing. It's a purpose. We all need one. And those of us who have sort of figured it out, it helps us get on with our life. So thank you for all of that.
But within health, and this is the area that I really am interested in terms of spiritual health. People will, when I ask them about so I developed a tool called FICA, which is a spiritual history tool that's now integrated everywhere, including the Epic electronic health record. And the idea is not just to find out if someone's got a religious identity. That's not the purpose. So the opening question is, do you consider yourself spiritual? So people might say, well, I don't know what that really means. But then I ask, what gives you meaning and purpose? Or people will identify as a religion or not. The stories I've heard from my patients are amazing. I love them. I learned so much from people. So it's really around that. And then how important is that to you? And does that influence in your healthcare decision making? And then do you belong to a community that's you consider spiritual? It could be your family, it could be church, temple, mosque, or it could be nature, it could be a couple of different things, right? So it's really putting that conversation into the clinical setting and creating what our work at GWISH is not creating. There's always been this idea of whole person care, the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. But nobody's really integrated the spiritual. It's always, especially in our country, has kind of gotten dropped. So it's a biopsychosocial, but the spiritual got dropped. And I felt that we needed to have that equal domain. And so it's an equal domain of all of health, of whole health. And
it's encouraging that it seems from my research and visiting with people, the interviews I've been doing, that more and more doctors are recognizing the importance of the spiritual aspect of their patients.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because they get, the proverbial 2x4 gets their attention. But it seems to be, Bob explained to me years, however many, 200 years ago or whatever, it was always part of it. And somehow or another, it got separated. Well, now it seems to be coming back together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, like you say, it doesn't really matter how you define that for yourself. It's just knowing that it's there. I would think helps the clinician to deal with the patient a little bit better. So anyway, interesting. So that melds with what we're trying to do.
We've created I'm going to put in quotes, diagnostic category for spiritual distress. And it's something we're going to flesh out more in this next initiative of our Templeton project. But if we all just bring ourselves back to the pandemic, I experienced existential and spiritual distress. We all did. Like when I was going into the clinic, was I going to bring COVID back here? Was I going to infect someone? I live in a condo. I was really, I don't want to infect. So we all had, or am I going to die? Or what's this going to be like? Or is my loved one going to die? Or, are they, I was worried about the cats, called the vet right away. Is there feline COVID,
Yeah, right, exactly.
So
and you're right, it affected all of us in some way.
And meaning and purpose. I mean, people, I transitioned to watching Mass. I love it, actually, in Toronto. It's a great church up there in Toronto. It's Jesuit. So, we would do things online. But there were blessings that came out of that because one of the people who was going to be attending, Carolyn Jacobs, if you don't know of her, you should. She was on the Dalai Lama's advisory board. She is a contemplative Catholic, an incredible human being, incredible. She's really wise, a major leader that you should be aware of, a social worker by training, was dean of social work at Smith. But we were colleagues always. And I told this story to Bob, whenever we went to a meeting, so we would all, we'd all be out talking, and Carolyn would say nothing. And that was the first time I met her at this meeting at Fetzer. And then she would say something and it was like, oh, that's it,
because sum everything up.
But she's really bright person. And so I'm really fortunate that we're close friends, but we Zoom her into Mass. So, so there were things that we did, but there was a sense of isolation and fear and despair, existential distress, certainly. And some of my patients were questioning, how could God do this to us? So a lot of, when I was seeing patients in clinic, so a lot of distress. And that is also something that is important when we look at it clinically, that if our patient is suffering, we need to know how to be present. And that's what gets into, I think, what you all are interested in. How can you be present? What I can't stand is, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it. The person suffering, it'll be all right.
That always makes me feel like, did you actually hear what I just said to you?
Exactly. So you have to learn that skill of contemplative listening, which I learned from an amazing woman, Sister Rosemary Doherty, who has since left this life, but is very much present in mine. How she's an interesting woman. She's a Catholic sister, but when Buddhism was introduced into the States, the Jesuits started studying with the Zen Buddhist masters, and she became also a Buddhist. So, but grounded as a Catholic sister, very much in her. I visited her when she was dying in her
One
house.
of our board members is a Jesuit Roshi.
There you go.
Yeah.
By the way, his name is Robert Kennedy. Do you know him?
No.
Robert Kennedy. He's a Roshi and a Jesuit priest, and I'm trying to get him to be the follow-up speaker to you.
That would be great.
To say grace, and the reason, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this flows into it. To say grace, but also to give a sense that the 2027 conference, we're going to expand beyond the Abrahamic faiths and start bringing Buddhism, Hinduism, etc.
That's so great.
And in the silence, there's no dogma, and go into that. And by the way, I invited Carolyn Jacobs to attend the cocktail party.
Good.
Even though she's not a speaker. So she's the one exception I made, because I got on the phone with her and it just clicked. I could tell we were speaking the same language. We've been fighting the same battles. So go ahead. Sorry.
He is an amazing friend. I really feel that's one of my huge blessings from the pandemic. because, like I said, we were all little groupies. And then I called her, and then, we were talking, and I thought, well, she's by herself. Maybe I should check in with her every day. So we had this little check in by text message, and then eventually phone calls. So we're really close friends. And she's also an amazing teacher to me still. She's phenomenal.
She's already registered for the conference.
Yeah, great. So anyway, it's that contemplative space, so that when someone is suffering, we as clinicians, we don't need to be expert meditators or anything like that. But at the very least, we need to keep our mouth shut and listen, and not, and that's what I tell my colleagues. Just if you see that your patient is crying or tearful, just stop, just pause. Joan Halifax has a great model called Grace in how to do this. I'm playing with Lectio Divina in my tradition to see it's very similar in the sense of conversation, and then you gradually move into this space of silence, but you have to recognize that. You have to have an awareness of the person that something has changed, and you have to be silent and wait for them to speak and not just rush them through. So I'm really passionate, and that's a big thing that a big part of what I'm trying to integrate more. It's part of our interprofessional spiritual care education course, is a module on compassionate presence and what that contemplative listening is about. I'm not teaching people how to meditate. I mentioned that might be a path, but just in the clinical setting, to recognize that there's something about the patient, something they're not sharing, and to hold that space open for them to speak.
Just recognizing the fact that your patient has a dimension of whatever you want to call it, whether it's spirituality or connection with nature, or it doesn't really matter, but that they have that seventh sense, if you will, that, that other place, that's huge. Doctors are not very good at that, most of them. Some of them are. Some of the older ones, I think, because they've seen this happen with their patients through the years, so they've gotten a little bit better with it. Yeah. But as far going back to COVID for a minute, Bob and I, and at the time Lyndon was here too, we live in a community, continuing care retirement community. Yeah. And during COVID, they don't like us to use this term, but this is what we were. We were on lockdown. Yeah. Because they literally stopped all the activities, and they were delivering meals, they were delivering mail. I mean, they tried to make it as easy as they could, but let's face it, when you're locked in your apartment for 6 weeks, it's tough. And what I've noticed, once things were lifted, and we're 5 years later, I have people that I know fairly well. The ones that really, really thrive on like what we're doing right now, the interaction with other people, that's what gives them their energy. Those people that were denied that, even if they tried Zooming and all this kind of stuff, have deteriorated incredibly fast since we came out of COVID. And whether anybody's studying that around here or not, I don't know, but I know it with my friends. Okay. I've watched them go downhill. And it's like, what in the world happened? These people who were very engaged and their minds were snapping along and they were involved, and you could have a wonderful conversation with them. Now, half the time, they don't know what the day is. And I find that incredibly sad that we're dealing with that. And I don't think we're dealing with it very well, to be honest with you. But for whatever it's worth, that's been my experience after COVID.
That's happened to a lot of my patients. I mean, people who were mental status was perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Like no indication, no family history, nothing. Right. And then I find out, I see a person come back to my clinic and I think something's a little off. I send them to memory clinic. Yeah. I think the isolation was really hard.
For a lot of, now me, I like being by myself. I was never bored. I kept busy, I mean, I write and I read, but I'm not everybody's like that. And so I appreciate what some of my really close friends went through, and it's sad, but anyway, I digress in a way.
Well, no, but it's this sense. So I would call a lot of that spiritual distress, loneliness, isolation.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
these diagnoses lists that are coming up, a lot of it is, some of it is faith-based, like questioning, faith issues, questioning God's purpose, whatever. That's always one people think about. But beyond that is just the why me question. Why is this happening to me now? Whether it's COVID or an illness or, why would God do this? It depends on what the relation. And a colleague of mine who's a chaplain that works with us, he's a Maryknoll priest and a board certified chaplain. He says often, and a social worker, so he's got these.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, he says often people, we all go through faith development like we do development in anything else in our own life or spiritual development. We're different, and as we get older, things change, but we're always ongoing development. But when people hit a crisis, in his experience, sometimes they will go back not to their spirituality and or faith that they have now, but will go back to what it was like when they were 2 or 3 years old. And so then all of a sudden it's, well, God is, I must have done something bad. That's why and then, then he unpacks that with people, right? Because the image of God is, they were raised with that. So it's really interesting. So it has a real big impact on how people understand illness and cope with it.
Yes, and the caregivers, a couple that I know fairly well, and Bob knows them. Well, so does Lyndon. All three of us know him. And Pat is 90 years old, and he fell in, I think it was, I don't know, somewhere in his shoulder anyway. And his wife, Karen, they've been married 65 years. Okay. And Karen is, she's taking care of him. Yeah. And I got an email from her earlier last week one day saying, I really didn't realize how much it takes to be a caregiver 24/7. Fortunately, Karen is a writer and she's writing about it. And I said, good for you, because that's a good way to work through these feelings. The same day, I get an email from Pat. He's a retired deacon. Okay. I get an email from Pat. He said, I'm trying to figure out why God has sent a 90-year-old man this kind of pain to deal with. I'm trying to figure out what his purpose is in that, what he's trying to teach me. And I thought, good for you, Pat. Both of them. They're trying to figure out why they're and how, that whole deal. And I'm encouraging them, just saying, hey, I'm praying for you, but hey, keep doing what you're doing, because they're helping themselves through what they're dealing with. And so it never stops, that kind of stuff. And they'll come through it, both of them, with their heads screwed on straight, more or less. But this is what we see around, at least I do, because of what I'm doing in the community. I see this a lot with people. And the older they get, even if they didn't have a particularly strong faith of any kind, the older they get, the more they seem to turn in that direction. Yeah. It's the what's going to happen after I know I'm going to die? What's going to happen next? Some of us have a reasonably, well, it's a little bit cloudy, but we, believe everything's going to be okay after we die. But a lot of people don't have that assurance. And that's what they're looking for. It's
and ultimately we don't really, we have our limited mind here.
Of course we do. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. There are those of us who said, if there isn't dark chocolate and red wine, I ain't going.
Well, okay.
So, but anyway, it's interesting. The human mind has always fascinated me. But anyway, I don't want to take up too much more time, because I know Bob has got some things he wants to discuss with you. What is one thing, Christina, that you would like the attendees to know about you, to take away from the conference, that they'll remember about Christina?
Well, that's a tough question.
Well, you can give me two if you want.
No, it's just like I have to think about that a little bit. I'm not. I didn't know this was going to be an interview, so I'm a little caught off guard.
Well, it's not, I don't think of it as an interview. It's more of a conversation to get to know you, because I feel like I can write a better profile if I kind of have an idea of who you are and where you came from. It's more personal that way. And if you tell me something that you don't want in there, fine, I won't put it in.
Well,
But
no. There's so many different aspects, that just with regard to my passion around spirituality. I mean,
okay.
that is very much. I know that that comes from a very deep call, and it's not just oh, good, now people are learning how to do spiritual histories. It's much
Mm.
deeper than that. It's really, my hope that either during my lifetime or after my lifetime, that at least I see so many people now involved. I'm very encouraged, but we really need to transform healthcare settings. And I'm particularly nervous now as to what's
Yeah.
going to happen in healthcare. The healthcare system already started changing a couple of years ago. And I just feel like it's just going to get worse, more, and I think that unfortunately, in this country, it's become a little bit of a corporate model, not a little bit, it is a corporate model. And while I understand the necessity to keep things running, I think that patient care is not a corporate model, right?
Okay, could you just give me
Yeah.
a little bit of definition? I know when you said healthcare setting, I know what went through my head. I'm sure it's not the same thing that went through your head.
Oh, all healthcare settings, hospitals, outpatient,
Okay. Doctor's
rehabs.
offices. Okay.
Yeah, it really, people are coming to, and I understand, I don't want to put it corporate part completely down, because yeah, you can't go broke, right?
Right.
So you
Yeah.
have these large organizations now that are providing care, a lot of, and so there has to be a concern. But where I see my colleagues getting burned out because they feel they're not working from their original call to be doctors or nurses, or mostly doctors and nurses.
Yeah.
They feel that they're taken away from that they're not working out of their call, that the system is pushing them to see 8 people an hour or whatever it is,
Yeah,
and the crazy
right.
numbers. 6, I
Yeah.
gave a talk a few months ago, and one of the doctors says, I'm in a primary care setting. I get 10 minutes a patient for the full exam. How can
Yeah.
you do the whole history and physical in 10 minutes?
How can
So
you even find out what their name is in 10 minutes?
exactly right. So I think my hope is that the passion that I'm seeing in all these people that are involved in this work, and now it's around the world, so it's not just in the US, the passion that I'm seeing. I just gave a presentation in Singapore for a whole health meeting, and a Catholic sister and a lay nurse from the Philippines raised their hand saying, we read your work and we've been implementing that. We're implementing that into our healthcare system. That to me was wonderful. And I talked to them afterwards. They're doing it in a different system than ours, but the message is the same. We want our patients to be valued. It transcends language and culture. That when we are all patients, right? So when we are in a patient role, don't we want to be heard? Don't we want to feel that the person respects us? That the person is not like, okay, yeah, and your medicine is this and da da da. I mean, we don't want that. That's why. And also, I don't think you can make a diagnosis if you don't really know the patient.
Yeah.
Because it's very complex. It's in some cases, if the person has chest pain, okay, it's probably a heart attack, so you're going to send them over to the hospital. But many times, the way people are coping with their lives or what's going on is multifactorial. And some of that has to do with their inner life.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to create a safe space. So I walk into the exam room, that is sacred space for me. That's my word, sacred, but people use whatever word. And I prepare myself for that sacred encounter. I would hope that all clinicians have some word that has that same idea, that this space is meaningful, that it is special, that this person is special, that I'm going to give them my full attention and be present to whatever is going on in their life.
I shocked my present doctor.
Yeah, good
He's a
for you.
gerontologist, and I made an appointment to see him. I was here maybe 6 months in this because we have 2 doctors that are devoted just to our community,
Nice.
which is nice. Yeah, and it's a healthcare center on campus. So I made an appointment to see him, and first question out of his mouth is, "Why are you here?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I kind of like you to get to know me before I need you." If you could have seen the look on his face.
Great.
And he really, at that point, Christina, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what questions to ask. And he finally kind of mumbled and stumbled a little bit. He said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I want you to know that if I tell you I hurt, I hurt. I didn't make it up in my head. I hurt. Or if something else is going on with me, I want you to pay attention because I'm not a complainer and I don't blow things up out of proportion. And he, as I was talking in those terms, trying to give him an idea of who I am as a person, I could see him relax a little bit. I think he thought I was going to drop a bombshell in his lap or something. But I think if more patients did that, it would help the doctors and nurses and therapists and different people that we see help us better if they knew us because we took the time to come in and say, here I am, and this is who I am before I need you.
That's really good. That's really, really good. Yeah.
It's helped. It took him a while. I've been here almost 8 years, and it's only been the last couple of years that I felt like he actually has relaxed enough to where he is treating me as Jan rather than a resident here at Eagles Trace or a number or whatever. I feel like he really listens and he really talks to me now. Took him 5 years, but hey, who's complaining? But I do think I heard what you said, and I agree with from a clinician standpoint, but also patients need to take a little bit of responsibility in this too, because this is we can't expect you to have all the answers if you don't know us. If we don't tell you all the information, give you all the information, how can you help us? So part of it is on us as patients.
And see, relates to people are starting, artificial intelligence is getting to be pretty big in medicine, and that they can save time, they can save this. And exactly what you just said is what I counter with. And that is maybe they can ask the medications that you're on, the doses, are you taking them regularly? Maybe they can ask those kinds of questions. But artificial intelligence doesn't have that ability, or maybe it does. Some people say I'm wrong, but to connect, to be able to care.
It doesn't have a heart.
It's a genuine caring. Yeah. Daniel
does not have a heart. No heart.
That Daniel Somasi is a very well-known ethicist, a former Franciscan. He's very, very good, actually, really good man. So I organized a panel for the American Association of Colleges and Universities on artificial intelligence. And he made the comment of, look, they can record my voice. And so AI can discuss the lab results with the patient. And they might even think it's me because it sounds like me. But it isn't. It isn't, because that AI doesn't have that emotional capacity. And someone argued that they're going to, program that. You can't program that.
Gosh.
No,
you can't program.
No.
What about
any more than you can teach somebody to have a heart?
And this is the thing about, the spiritual domain. This is about the spiritual domain. That's what is us as human beings. It's so important. So yes, what you advocated for is part of this whole movement in spiritual care. It's not just saying, oh, what's your spirituality? That's nice. Click. No, it's about the relationship. It's about being present. That's why we have a module in our interprofessional spiritual care education curriculum that is all on compassionate presence.
I think that's one of the things that the old family doctor, quote unquote, had, because he didn't know just this particular patient. He knew the whole family.
Yeah.
And so just because I have a headache, what's going on at home, Jan? Why do you have a headache, kind of thing? And we've unfortunately lost a lot of that when we lost the family doctor.
Well, the top people in science are saying the same.
I'm losing battery. I'll be right back. I just want to plug it in. I can hear you. Yeah.
Do you have many questions left, Jim?
No, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I
know you two want to talk.
Time to wrap this up, because I think she has 15 more minutes. Correct?
Right.
Yes.
So are you have any more questions? You said
no. That's fine. I can always email her if I do.
Okay.
I was also trying to get some information for Jeff too.
I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy if you have any more questions. But and and is this going to get published somewhere or something like that? Or
It'll
you're
be in
just
the, what I'm going to do, and they're only about, the ones I've done so far, about 250 to 300 words long. It's just a little profile in the program.
Oh, okay, good.
So that they just have kind of an idea of who you are and what you believe and why you came. Why did you agree to be here? Because it does take away from your time at what you normally do. And so I wanted our attendees to get a sense that this person really cares or she wouldn't be here. And this is why she cares. That's what this is all
And
about.
would it be okay if I review what you're going to put in?
You're not the first one that's asked that. I'm still considering that for different reasons. I normally don't do that. As a writer, I normally don't do that because I do a lot of journalism work. But if it's that important to enough people, yeah, I'll send it. I'll send it.
And by the way, if it's any consolation, I can attest that she's very respectful for people. So that, and you can read her paragraph at the end of my forward, in the end of the preface of my book, where she wrote a paragraph. I don't know if you saw that. So read that.
And also, the program will be read by both Bob and Lyndon before anybody else sees it, because they are my two my eagle eyes. They also are my editors, both of them, and they're very kind and very compassionate, and they won't let me get away with anything that they feel is not appropriate, if that helps you.
Well, it's not whether it's appropriate or not. I just prefer it. I've had things written about me that, and I know that I have a sense that just does not apply to you, but that has not been exactly correct, or it's so.
Yeah. I understand. I do understand.
I apologize in line with that I didn't add secular Carmelite to the write-up on the conference website. I will add that.
Yeah.
And I apologize.
I'm going to step out now.
To add that, I actually don't generally say that other than in circumstances like this, because I think it really does. It does really support some of the way that I understand presence.
Now, as we talk go ahead.
I've enjoyed our conversation, Christina, and I could talk to you for another hour, but I know that.
No, I could do that too.
I know Bob and Lyndon have some other questions that they want. I mean, if we want to get some money, they want to talk to you about Templeton. So I'll back off. I'm looking forward to meeting you, though, in Rome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
It's nice to meet you.
Just
money from Templeton. I don't know. I think.
Well, you've done it twice, and we've struck out twice. So you got to be doing something that we're not doing.
No, and I'm happy to help you. I will tell you that. Well, I don't know that I even want to go down this path, but that people are always happy when apparently stocks go up when a certain party member gets elected. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've been told that they may have more money this year, but I don't know if that's from a third party. So I don't know. I don't want to get into that though.
Yeah.
No,
let me do a little housekeeping here, just real quick housekeeping pickup. Yeah. Did you already start promoting it on your websites, the conference?
I gave it to Mary. I think she already did on our social media.
And so on recurring newsletters too.
Yeah, we're just finishing one. We just started doing newsletters recently. Let me if you can send me the information again. I'm 99.999% sure that Mary's already been doing this. In fact, I think I saw it on social media actually.
Because it's early, we're running out of time. We want to be sure it's still time effective. So I will send that to you.
Yeah.
Okay. What's interesting about the different approaches that I can understand you've been doing and we've been doing is what's fascinating about whether it's politics, medicine, or religion or whatever. Most people can agree on the outcome. They want the goal. They all agree on the goalpost. It's the process of getting there that's usually variations. And I love the way you did it. What I found in dealing with the medical center here, because I was vice chairman of the Institute for Spirituality and Health here, is that appealing more to specific illnesses nets you more research money and potentially more access to patients. And so we made a more approach on the neuroscience side, because quite often scientists now want more hard evidence as opposed to soft evidence, if that makes any sense. There's still that mentality of the soft sciences and the hard sciences, whether that's right or wrong. And so we've been doing these brain scan studies, and we did it on bipolar disorder, PTSD, Parkinson's, and comparing near-death experiences with mystical experiences that were separate to show that if they practice this, they should have less fear of death. So that should appeal to your palliative care background. And so with the brain scans, that's been done with pilot studies. So we've had 5 on each, basically. And it's astounding. And we just finished the PTSD, and it's very impressive. But how do we launch that to the hospitals? If we take that to the hospitals, oh yeah, that's only 5 patients, and it's a weak study. And we have several on our board that are MDs. We've got John Graham. He was the former president of the Institute for Spirituality and Health. And he's got 3 doctorates in MD. I don't know if you knew him.
I did.
Yeah, I thought you did. And then Father Kennedy, who's not an MD. Then Harvey Rosenstock, who's an MD psychiatrist and a rabbi Kabbalist. And then we've got, and he was part of that research day in PTSD because that's his expertise. And then we have there was another, I think. So at any rate, we've been doing this, okay? And so the question then was, how do we launch to the hospitals? And one of the people on our team is a registered nurse, a PhD, and she's wonderful. And she believes that it's got to come through the nursing system because they're in more contact with the patients. And I think there's a certain sense to that. But also they've started to talk in terms of using the right terminology, healing, quality of life rather than healing. You got to be careful how you use language.
Yeah, you have to be very careful.
And, you know the story. And the other thing was the fact that it could be done through physical therapy because we know neuroplasticity is real. So it could be done through that on an elective basis, obviously, because only 87% of the population believes in a God. But that's enough to make it part of the program, basically. So we're using this conference to try to launch that into that concept and that thinking and get people's attention that are attending from all over the world. Then leverage off the conference to escalate the pilot studies to the next phase. And we've estimated, we paid for all those pilot studies, and we were paying those out of our own pocket. But the next step, we're looking at probably $110,000, $120,000 per study with 25 patients each. In other words, patients in control group, 25 each. And I think that seems to be more acceptable. So you can see from the research side, it's a little more specific to illnesses, which could be complementary to what you've done in the hospitals, in the spiritual side. And that's where I'm open, and we're open to your ideas on how we can move this forward to the next phase and to do it in the Templeton grant application. So I'm trying to give you a flavor for whatever. So
if you have something written up about the study, how you did it, what your aims are, and those kinds of things. So did you apply to Templeton? I thought you told me you applied and it didn't get accepted, or?
That's correct. 2 times.
And what did you ask for in that grant?
We were asking.
I don't mean money. I don't mean money. I mean it was a pilot project.
Well, this is to expand from the pilot to 25 patients, 25.
Control.
Yeah, right.
patients in control group.
Oh,
In control group. Yep. So, and so the funding to make that happen.
Yeah, it would be helpful just to see that proposal.
Okay, perfect.
We can get both to you.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, didn't you all publish a paper on?
We've published 4 papers now, one on each of those 4 studies.
Right.
And in a reputable journal, from what I'm understanding. And all of those have links on our website, as do the descriptions of the research. In fact, if you don't mind here, just one second.
Oh, what a nice scene that is.
This is the public. Can you see?
Yeah, just make it bigger a little bit. Yeah.
So this was the PTSD research. Now, we've been doing this research out of Cuba.
Wow.
And,
You didn't tell me that last time. Yeah.
and we're using communist equipment. I think it's wonderful. This is God working, I got to tell you. There's a whole other story as to why we were doing it there, okay? But there's credibility issues. That's another reason to take it into the United States and to expand it all in one fell swoop. And you talked about maybe doing that at your hospital up there. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that GW hospital. So you have to understand so the university is kind of separate from the hospital or vice versa. The hospital is for profit and it's owned by, what's the name of that healthcare organization? I can't think of it. Universal Health. So I doubt that they would want to do the hospital, but I'm interested in this. And so how does this, do you at all get into sort of the work out of the neurosciences and Buddhism? Because they've done some similar work.
Well, the difference between them is that I've seen some of that because I attended the conference at Mind and Life Institute where they were promoting all of that.
Yeah.
Meeting was invited by the Dalai Lama and he sent me as an advanced man.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that we're capitalizing on Koenig's research, Koenig's work on gathering things together, that if you have a theistic belief system, you have much, real improvements. So there hasn't been that much study on the theistic approach. Although the meditation practice is really contemplation, if you want to talk in logical terms, the words. And we taught this as interfaith centering prayer. And so it was from an interfaith centering prayer, theistic approach that we did it. And then the brain scans were done to demonstrate the effect, okay? And it's in this article, and I'll send this article to you. And of course, it's a correlation. It's not a causality.
You know that Harold's work is a little controversial because, a lot of his work and I love Harold, we're good friends. And it's just, he's been very faith-centered and looked at church attendance and healthcare outcomes. And he makes a valid point that that's an easier thing to measure than spirituality broadly defined.
Right.
But, some of that, so it is, and then I'm blanking on his name, the guy up at Harvard, there is some statistical, there are statistically significant findings that attending church does result in some better outcomes. And they're proposing that has to do with community, the fact that people have community. But you just need to know that there's a lot of controversy about that kind of data, right? Because what does it mean that you attend church regularly and so maybe your blood pressure is better? Explore that.
I'm very much aware of that. And Harvard was more tied to Benson.
And this is different. This is different. I mean, what you're talking about here with centering prayer is
I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that Harvard was originally started with Benson. I talked to Benson.
Yes, my buddy.
I spoke with Benson about this.
Yeah.
And that certainly was, the Buddhists did wonderful research. I came back and praised it up and down. And I still do. And
I'm not just saying only Buddhists.
I believe that there's a religious, a Catholic interpretation of that is that God dwells within them. Why shouldn't they benefit? No problem. But if you want to assume that Koenig has some basis, because there's so many pieces of research.
No.
Why not offer theism as an option?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're not treating the full patient.
Yeah.
That's the only argument.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And so the question is, are you going to focus only on Christian beliefs,
No.
or is it going to expand?
Interfaith
Good,
centric,
good. Okay. Yeah.
theistic. That's why on 2027 it's going to be Hinduism, Robert Kennedy on Zen Buddhism. We're going to, because that allows for a belief in a God. And so it'll actually open up even more. We're starting in Rome with Abrahamic because it was appropriate as a starting point. We didn't have time for everything.
Yeah.
So it's actually theistic, and not trying to capitalize on what Koenig has discovered, even though it might be controversial in terms of cause and effect. The issue is not causality. It's association.
Yeah.
You can't show causality. You can show association with it, but that's about it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But this is, I mean, this is a really important area, and I would really, suggest, you probably know all of the, mind life and those, the research that's been done that does show that meditation does make a difference. And so, I think it's, the interfaith aspect is important too.
Oh, it's not just important; it's critical.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, found out what I discovered. One of our board members was a partner with the major top researcher on Parkinson's, and here in Houston. And we got turned down to be able to get some patients from him to do the expanded study, and wouldn't talk to me about why. Then I found out through our board member, who was friends of his, he didn't want religion tied up with his research, even though 87% of the population believes in a God. And if it's just the placebo effect, who cares as long as you're helping patients? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And so I got shot down there. It turns out that hospital was the Catholic hospital in Houston. Mm-hmm. So go figure. This gets back to the concept of why eliminate 87% of the population from this option. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. I think, well, I just, you just think about the universality. I think so many people are seeking and trying to understand meditation practices, but they don't really have teachers or others, that can help them, understand the depth of that. I think I told you, but I got involved with Headspace. I just celebrated my 7th year of doing Headspace every single day. And Headspace is the person that runs it was a Buddhist monk for many years, trained really well, and he offers these little lessons about meditation. And the one the other night was, I really feel awkward trying to explain meditation, which is really not, you can't really explain it, right? So he said, I'm trying to explain it, but it's awkward because you don't want that to be the focus, because it's really an experience. It's not that I'm going to tell you, you do this breathing, then this happens, and this happens. It's really a very deep and profound experience. And so it's something that needs to be experienced for people to understand it, contemplative meditation.
Do you know Finley? Jim Finley? Mm-hmm. You know James Finley?
James Finley, no.
He's part of Richard Rohr's group.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And he's one of the speakers, and he's got his doctorate in psychology.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
Psychology, okay. And basically, mysticism is experiential. It's not like the written words, the spoken words, okay? So you're absolutely right. Now, I've been teaching centering prayer, interfaith centering prayer around the world. I've been to 107 countries. And what I've experienced in seeing people react.
Yeah, you told me that story about meditation.
It was the anecdotal reason why we started the research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I taught a patient that was in full-blown freeze, PTSD freeze.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Parkinson's full-blown freeze. I told you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I'll play a video in the conference. Now, has Buddhism not experienced that same thing? No, they have. They've discovered this. They're doing some similar things. My shtick is, why not get double bang for your buck like Koenig has demonstrated? Why not?
Anyway, this is good work you all are doing. So
Like you can tell I'm passionate about this, but
I know you are.
Oh, no, he doesn't care anything about it, Christina. No.
Well, I love the penguins here. So where is this? I love this.
I took that photograph. That's on the cover of my book, and that's in the Antarctic.
Yeah, I know. I've been to Antarctica. That's why I kind of recognize it.
I traveled there, and it was
Yeah.
an incredible experience. My second book that Jan also was the editor on, it's going to be published in time for the conference.
Yeah.
Its title is Face to Face, and the subtitle is Divine Encounters in God's Earthly Kingdom. And it was the background travel experiences that led to the first book.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of them was here.
I just dug this up off my phone. That's one of the penguins that I had a close encounter with.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really lovely. I was really lovely. I just found a place I was able to sit in total silence, and all of a sudden I hear like little cracking of the ice, and this penguin comes up and kind of looks at me as I'm meditating. It was really sweet.
So you went to the Antarctic?
I did go, yeah. I did go. Did I not tell you that it's a very interesting story? So Herb Benson called me up one day. His secretary did.
Oh, really?
And he said, Dr. Benson would like to talk to you about doing a talk. And he's done that before. So I thought, okay, it's going to be like in Baltimore or something, fine, whatever. So he gets on the phone. He goes, listen, I've been invited to do a talk on a cruise in Antarctica, and I don't want to go. Will you do it? And I said, are you nuts? What's wrong with you? So then he says, I'm seasick. I don't want to. I don't know. So I had this wonderful trip. I was a speaker, spoke around end of life and spirituality, and there was an incredible photographer there. We were all lining up behind this photographer, and Art Wolf. We're all lining up behind this photographer, taking pictures, and then of course we all shared the pictures toward the end of the trip. And his are masterful, and we're like, oh. But it was an amazing spiritual. It was an amazing spiritual experience because I would just go off. We'd all go off. It was a really interesting group of people. A lot of doctors there, and just go off on our own and just sit in silence. And it was it was only 60 passengers, so it was really nice. Maybe 80, and then the rest were crew. Yeah, but it's a beautiful place. Beautiful, beautiful place. I love that.
It's amazing. And at any rate, the book that is on the cover of, I assume you have it, and at the very end of it is where I talk about the encounters with people in teaching this and the start of the research, basically. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And I don't want to rob people of this experience and having exposure to it. I mean, to teach it. Yeah. And you and I both know the operating vendor in this whole thing is the healer. It's the divine healer. It's not me. But opening ourselves up to the gift of contemplation is the key. And that vehicle is interfaith centering prayer. And what I have found, to my amazement, is even though that's Trappist and Keating was my mentor, it's being accepted terminology to the Jewish faith and to the Sufis. So on our board is an imam that practices interfaith centering prayer.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I just need. Hello? Hello? Yes, who is this? Okay. I'm on a call. Can I call you back just in 2 minutes? I'm just finishing a call. I'll call you right back, okay? That's a patient call, so I'm going to have to take that.
Well, we'll let you go, but I'll send you a lot of this material. I don't know how much time you'll have. I'll try to keep it brief.
Okay.
And I want to be sure that it gets promoted. All the stuff we covered, I'll make notes. I'll send it to you. And I'll send it to Sharon. And I'll add your secular Carmelite to this.
Yeah. All right. That sounds great. That's what the OCDS is after my name. People don't understand. They go, what is that, a doctorate in what? Obsessive compulsive disorders, maybe.
Yeah.
Linda didn't get a chance to talk. You have anything? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're doing good, and we'll get this information to you, Christina. It's a pleasure talking with you. And
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you,
On your good
Christina.
work. Thank
Look
you.
forward to look forward to seeing you in Rome.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.